Hola todos, how we doing? Let's see if we can get caught up a little bit in our chapters. We've been having interesting discussions in class, but we need to make sure we get our chapter material down too. Chapter 4, we're finishing this first section of the text where before we get into a deep dive into the zones, we really want to talk about network structure and social influence. Basically how social networks work, so to speak. Okay? I think that's all this stuff right here. So when we talk about a community, one of the things that I love so much about the town that I live in is it really is a community. There are sports leagues, and there's neighborhoods, and there's a main street, and there's social organizations, and it is a community. When I lived up in Boston, I loved Boston, but the town that I lived in really didn't have a community feel to it. It really didn't. The town that I live in now does. Now, you have that feeling on campus. You're in a dorm, you're in a fraternity or sorority, you're in particular clubs, you might do leadership. These are pockets of community in the larger community of Seton Hall. Right? When we have online communities, it's the same concept except for using digital communication to help connect these particular communities. Hold on, I have to write something down. Sorry about that, class. These are all different types of communities listed here. I don't know if any of these are really strong communities. I know Weibo is. WhatsApp tends to be. I don't know if I would call WhatsApp necessarily a community, but in loose terms, it is. I tend to think about communities, not only do we have the social platforms like Facebook, like Twitter, that there are communities, but there are communities beyond the social platforms like on YouTube and particularly blogging communities when we want to do inbound content marketing kind of stuff. Now, these online communities tend to have a structure. Okay, the structure of the community are the social networks. Okay? Now, this isn't a very good image, but if we were to take LinkedIn, there is actually a way to mathematically and graphically illustrate the connections within a particular community. Social network analysis, basically, is what it's called by the academic geeks like myself. And you can see how people are connected to each other within a social network. Now, this tends to look, kind of looks like a butterfly here, but. Now, one of these expressions of the network analysis is this term called the 6 degrees of separation. Okay? This is a very famous study that was done by a social psychologist in the 60s. And he and his team wanted to figure out how people were connected across the United States. So he basically sent a random letter to someone with the goal of getting it to a random person in New York that they knew. And how long would it take for someone to get this letter to this particular person? And it took about 6 steps. Now, when Reid Hoffman, and this is the book, by the way. You guys know I'm a geek, and you know that I recommend books all the time. But this really is the book that you need to get as a Christmas gift. The Startup of You. Not only is it a spectacular book, but it does an unbelievable job of talking about network theory and networks and how you should network and all that other stuff. Now, Hoffman doesn't necessarily agree with the 6 degrees of separation. He says that was fine and dandy in the 60s before we had digital tools. But at this point in time, you ever notice how LinkedIn only has 3? He believes everyone in the LinkedIn community is separated by no more than 3 degrees of separation. And he might be right. You can be directly connected, 1st degree, indirectly connected, either through a group or an alumni association, and then there's everyone else. But between your direct connections, your group connections, and your alumni associations, and people you follow, you're almost connected to everyone in the entire LinkedIn community in some way, shape, or form. Now, some terminology. Okay, social graph, nodes, node-to-node relationships, artifact flows, and media multiplicity. I'm not sure, do we... Hold on one second, class. Actually, they don't. So I need to explain these now. Just wanted to make sure there weren't slides for each one of these before I started talking about them. Your social graph would be, let's take one of your social platforms, either LinkedIn, Twitter, or Instagram. Take one of them, okay? Look at your 1,000 followers on Facebook. Put yourself in the middle, and you could create nodes out. A node would be to a particular individual, and that individual would be connected to other individuals, right? Well, that's nodes. Your social graph would be your... Let me just show you. If we were to do this for you, this would be your social graph. If we were to do this with your Facebook account, we could connect you with the 1,000 people you have in Facebook and see who's connected to who, how strong are these connections, and each person in this network would be considered a node. So your social graph is everyone you possibly could reach. Nodes are basically all your contacts within that social graph. Node-to-node relationships would be, maybe you're connected to person A, but person A is also connected to person B. Person B is connected to person C, and you have a direct connection with person C. So person B you might not have a direct connection with, but you have 2 or 3 direct connections to people who have a direct connection with that individual. You ever notice how LinkedIn makes recommendations for people you should connect with? It's because they're looking at node-to-node relationships and saying, seems like there's people here that you are connected with, that a lot of people you're connected with is also connected with this individual. Maybe you should connect with them as well. So artifacts is more like data. Flows is how much communication happens between nodes. Okay, some flows are quite strong. Some of your people, of your 1,000 people you have in Facebook, maybe there's 50 or 60 you have very high flows with. Maybe another 150 to 200 you have semi-regular flows with. You might have another 500 that these are people from high school that you haven't sent them a message in, I don't know, a year or two. And then you have the ability that through a social graph and through a network terminology, you have the ability to multiply, this whole viral kind of thing. So some characteristics or elements of online communities, we have participation, of course. We have behavioral standards, norms. What happens in one community is not necessarily what happens in all communities. I forgot that I had that on my chest the whole time I was talking. I'm going to get a digital copy to this, by the way. This is the most recent issue of The New Yorker. I haven't read it. I probably will read it before we get to Wednesday's class. This is another 6-page deep dive into who Reid Hoffman is. And I haven't read it yet, so I can't tell you what it's about. But I will get a copy to you guys and put it on Blackboard after I read it. Social objects, conversations happen, how active you are, how available you are, how much you are seen. This is all called presence. Whether there is a democracy or a dictatorship within a particular community. These are some characteristics of communities. In social object theory, each community has a particular base target. In this one, the social object is dogs. In some particular YouTube videos, they are cats. Now, in my blog, my social object is really nuggets, and what I would like to give more nuggets to everyone. My podcast has a particular community. It tends to be more sports and tech. But every community tends to have a focus, a central focus, and that focus is what we call the social object. This is more viral stuff. Oh my God, does this seem really, really old? We don't have to go there. So how do ideas travel within a community? So there is a network structure, and if we look at these images, if we look down here, I'm going to blow this up. Oh, that's this. I want to blow... No, I can't really do that. Let's leave it alone for now. Within, let's just say this... Oh, God, that's ugly again. Don't want to go there. These are all nodes, okay? The size of the node probably indicates some kind of activity that this person is very, very active. 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 You notice that this person only has direct connections with 1, 2, 3 people. These people have direct connections with each other, but this person has a direct connection with this person. This person has a direct connection with this person. And this person has a direct connection with this person, but this person does not. This is like in the example where LinkedIn makes recommendations. There would probably be a recommendation to this person or this person that these two should connect. Right? So what happens is that these more active individuals, let's broadly call them influencers, 1, 2, 3 people could send a message, and because of their connections here, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, we could, between this person, and this person, these influencers could basically notify either directly or within 1 degree of separation this entire social network. That's kind of how ideas travel in a community. You have some information that you want to pass along. It could be serious, it could be a joke, it could be a hello, it could be a birthday, it could be a baby announcement, it could be anything. But if 1 or 2 or 3 people within a particular community send the same message, chances are everyone in the community is going to see it. There is a thing called a meme. A meme is a cultural touchstone. It's a cultural piece of information. It usually could be an insider thing. Memes get spread rather quickly. You guys have all seen... Rickrolling was probably one of the most famous, and I have no idea how this started. I'm sure we can Google it to figure it out. But Rick Ashley, which is where Rickrolling came from, if you kind of wanted to go na-na-na-na-na to someone, you Rickroll them. If you wanted to shove it in someone's face, you give them that... You send them that famous 80s god-awful video. Never Gonna Give You Up. I don't know why this video of all bad videos became the meme that you send to people to shove something in their face, but God, it's not that great of a song. Alright. So, what I was saying before about those influencers, we can also call them opinion leaders. Broadly speaking, these people are opinion leaders. They have the ability, they have some social capital, they have some street cred. These opinion leaders, people listen to them. Now, some opinion leaders are called mavens. Some are connectors, some are salespeople. Salespeople are very persuasive. Connectors tend to have a large social graph, and they're connected to many, many people. Mavens is... Before I go off on too much of a tangent, let me hit pause for a second. I wish I had the ability to tilt my computer around so I could teach and talk to you guys by looking at my books. They're all here. A lot of them are downstairs. The term mavens comes from this book. This is called The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. The Tipping Point is one of those books that everyone that you interview with already read it. You know, it's one of those deals that if you wanted to... Oh, God, what a picture. He doesn't look anything like that anymore. You know, this was a pre-internet book, a pre-Web 2.0 book that wanted to explain why things go viral. Now, it's very good. This one is a Web 2.0 book, Contagious, Jonah Berger. I keep talking about this one in class. Also a very good book. But the term maven comes from this book. If you want something else to put on your Christmas list, these two, solid. Maven, where's Maven? Maven, 61. So on page 61. The word maven comes from Yiddish. Mavens, it means one who accumulates a lots of knowledge. And it just so happens that a professor named Linda Price, was at the University of Nebraska when he interviewed her, but she's now at Arizona, University of Arizona. She wrote a Journal of Marketing paper in 1985 defining what a maven is and giving examples of mavens. Mavens tend to be someone that you always go and ask their opinion because they kind of know everything. Like you have a friend that's like a tech buddy and you say, you need like you want to know if Chromecast is any good? You go talk to your maven friend. You have another friend of yours that just knows everything about cars and you want to buy a car? You just go talk to the maven because the maven knows it all. Well, Linda was my professor. You know, this was one of my nuggets that I actually knew about mavens before I read it in here. And my professor was interviewed by Gladwell, and because Gladwell interviewed Linda from a paper that she wrote 15 years before this book came out, the term maven became popular enough that it's now in the popular culture. And you could Google mavens, and everybody uses this term all the time, including in the Reid Hoffman book. The term maven's in this book as well. But one of my professors created it. Kind of neat, huh? So that gives you an idea of how things travel. It used to be, you know, random or harder in the pre-digital world for things to spread. You know, you would have to have something like this to happen. When we have digital things move a lot faster. Opinion leaders did that. Now, regardless of whether you're a maven, a connector, a salesman, I tend to use the word social capital. Social capital is an accumulation of resources, you know. You have some kind of social capital. In other words, you are known for... I'm known for knowing a lot about Apple. I acquired this capital over time. You know, reporters call me. I talked about Apple in the press. That's social capital, okay? This is kind of along the same lines when we talk about social power. You know, you might have the ability to reward people, either with likes or friends. If someone has a lot of followers and they retweet something for you, all of a sudden you get a bazillion retweets. That has like that reward power. And there's all these other various types of power that derive from social capital. If you have a strong reputation, you have friends, you know who knows stuff. And look at Dennis, and he knows just about as much about Apple as I do. Him and I can sit there and talk about it forever. Alex Cohn, him and I talk finance all the time. Why does he have that social capital? While he practically lives in the trading room. Every time I walk by to go to my office, he's sitting there. You know, it's kind of crazy. But you earn the social capital. I don't remember these, and to be honest with you, we don't have to worry about that for now. Someone tried to measure social capital back when the Web 2.0 era was happening, and some guys created an algorithm, and they called it clout. If you have a lot of clout, you have a lot of social capital. It's usually spelled with the word C, and these guys spelled it with the word K. It's an app you can put on your phone, and it basically measures your social graph. You put in your credentials for Facebook, LinkedIn, and you end up with some kind of a Klout score somewhere between, although it's almost impossible to have a 0 score, somewhere between 1 and 100, with 100 being the highest score. And only a few people, meaning like single digit, have ever hit the 100 number. It's pretty hard to hit the 100 number. An adequate score is somewhere in the 40s, low to high 40s. 50s is pretty good. 60s is pretty special. 70s, 80s. You know, the number of people that have a Klout score of 90 are probably only a couple hundred. You know, the only way you get that is you have hundreds of millions of people following you. I mean, this is a Taylor Swift number. This is a Justin Bieber falling off the face of the earth number. You know, this is a Katy Perry number. Katy Perry's probably not even in the 90s. You know, Obama's in the 90s. You know, he has the ability to be in the 90s. How do you get your Klout score up? You basically need people with higher Klout scores than you being influenced by your information. So let's say you have a Klout score in the mid-40s and you want it to go higher. Well, having a large followers that tend to do a lot with your information. So if you tweet something out and a large percentage of your followers also retweet it, your Klout score is going to go up. But the other way your Klout score goes up is if the people who are retweeting or favoring or doing something with your information have a Klout score much higher than yours. If you have a 45 and someone who has a 75 is retweeting you on a frequently basis, your Klout score is going to go up. Klout got bought out about 12 to 15 to 18 months ago. And since the buyout, they've really... It's bad. I deleted the app from my phone. I don't look at it anymore. It used to be kind of interesting. If you want more information about that, we can talk about it in class. But everyone can figure out your Klout score. But Klout as a company, I'm not nearly as impressed with anymore compared to what they used to be. I'm going to end up with strong and weak ties. Now, when we talk about core ties, significant ties, and weak ties, okay? So, and he does a great job of talking about, the expression is the strength of weak ties. So let's go back, and the easiest way to talk about this is to go back to this image. So a strong tie is someone you're directly connected to. A weak tie for this individual would be this person, because they're 1, 2 people away. You know what I mean? So a strong tie, these are your two best buddies. You're directly connected to them. You talk to them on a daily basis. You interact with them both verbally and digitally daily. Well, these are strong ties. The problem with strong ties is that you guys share information all the time. Very rarely does something completely new pop up amongst you guys that are all strongly connected. You might all work in the same company or on the same floor of a particular company, right? But this person over here is someone that you went to college with, that you were friends with, but you know, it's not one of your buddies that you talk to on an ongoing basis. They work at a different company. And they bring information. This individual brings information in to this strong group of connections that these three people didn't really know. This is a weak tie. These are strong ties. And usually the best information comes from the weak ties. The weak ties are further away from the central nodes. And because of that, they are connected to people or an information that would be interesting or novel to this particular group or this individual. Because this individual is strongly connected to here, here, and here. But something happening here, or here, or here is probably much more novel to this person than anything this person would say, this person would say, or this person would say. These people they talk to all the time. This person they don't talk to very frequently. Or they're not even directly connected to them. It's the weak ties that might give you the most valuable information. It's a friend of a friend. And the friend of the friend is saying something that you had no idea because all your group of friends. So core ties are the strong ties or significant ties. Weak ties are those individuals whom you have relationship is based on a weaker experience or have very few connections to. And you can Google the expression, the strength of weak ties, the power of weak ties. And usually a strong social network will have a lot of weak ties. There will be a lot of people that will be distant and further out from the core. And it's those weak ties is where all the new fresh information comes into the social graph. Okay? I think we're good for chapter 4. You have any questions? We'll talk about it in class.